What if the universe has never been as distant as it seems, and what if signs of that closeness have been passing through our skies all along? Oh, Muamua Boris 3A Atlas. These objects are not omens of disaster, nor signals of a return. They are evidence that the boundary between worlds has never been closed. They remind us that the solar system is not a sealed bubble, but a meeting place. A region where travelers pass through, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes surprising, sometimes understood only by those generations prepared to see them. Now, we can carefully enter the story, because this evening we explore an idea that has lingered in shadow for millennia. It appears in Sumerian clay tablets, in unresolved cosmic puzzles and curious interstellar visitors, and in the uneasy suspicion that what humanity fears may also be something humanity has encountered before. It begins with a question that has echoed across ages. What if something ancient is coming back? To see why this question carries such weight, we must step far into the past. Long before telescopes, before modern science, before maps defined our world, before electricity illuminated the night. Imagine a night in ancient Sumer 5,000 years ago. The desert air is cool and still. Inside a temple chamber, a solitary scribe works by the flickering glow of oil lamps. Clay tablets are arranged before him. Some record dynasties of kings. Some preserve myths and legends. Others contain cautions and omens. Among them, worn by time and marked with careful symbols, are texts describing beings not born of this earth. Beings said to have descended from the sky to have guided early humanity, and who, according to certain ancient readings, were destined to return. They were called the Anunnaki. Their role in mythology is complex and layered. They are not simply gods in the conventional sense, but entities that move between domains. Figures bound to the heavens, associated with wisdom and catastrophe, with beginnings and endings, with cycles unfolding across spans of time far exceeding human memory. Most scholars understand these stories as symbolic expressions. Others interpret them as metaphors for natural forces, yet there have always been those who sensed something else within these accounts, concealed meanings, coded references, fragments of a larger cosmic pattern. And within some of these interpretations lies a specific idea, a celestial body connected to the Anunnaki. A world, a traveller, something that does not follow the familiar paths of the planets we know. Something with a vast, elongated orbit so extended that its previous visit predates recorded history. An object that passes close to Earth only during rare intervals, moments when civilizations transform, ascend, or collapse. In later eras, this hypothetical world would be given a name, Nibiru. A realm of legend, a realm of conjecture, a realm that some regard as metaphor while others see as a forgotten astronomical truth. Yet myths do not endure for thousands of years by chance. They persist because they touch something fundamental, something rooted in human psychology, in ancestral memory, in a deep and instinctive unease about the heavens above us. Long before the rise of modern science, ancient civilizations observed the sky not as ornamentation but as a source of meaning and at times warning. And on occasion the sky did indeed seem to speak. Meteors, comets, and unpredictable objects streaked across the darkness, like messengers from the cosmos. Lights appeared that followed no familiar pattern. Visitors arrived without announcement, crossed the celestial dome in silence, and vanished just as mysteriously as they had come. To those early observers, these were not simply natural events. They were signs, omens, portents. Even now, in an age of equations and instruments, an unknown object arriving from the depths of space still carries a primal weight. And that brings us to the modern era, to telescopes and observatories, and to the realization that not everything drifting between the stars behaves as we anticipate. In 2017, humanity detected the first known interstellar object, an elongated, tumbling enigma known as Muamua, and it confounded astronomers across the world. Its motion was peculiar. It accelerated in ways that defied easy explanation. Its reflection of sunlight varied strangely. It behaved neither like a typical comet nor like an ordinary asteroid. It came from beyond our solar system and departed with the same quiet indifference with which it arrived. Scientists debated its nature. Observers speculated. Some argued for natural causes. Others wondered whether something with intent had briefly passed through our cosmic neighborhood. But Muamua did something more profound. It altered our perception of the universe. It reminded us that the solar system is not an isolated island. It is part of a dynamic, interconnected galaxy. And once a visitation has occurred, the possibility of further visitations becomes undeniable. Then in 2019, a second interstellar object appeared, 2E Borisov. more comet-like, more familiar in form, yet still unmistakably foreign to our skies. Two visitors arriving back-to-back after millions of years with none at all. Humanity felt something stir, a quiet echo of ancient instinct, because throughout mythic history, the arrival of rare celestial wanderers has often been linked to periods of transition. And then in 2024, astronomers identified a third interstellar traveler, 3 Atlas, another object, another outsider, another anomaly entering the solar system from the vastness of deep space. For mainstream science, 3 Atlas is simply an additional data point, a strange yet ultimately explainable comet-like body from another star system. But for those who study ancient texts, for those who examine Sumerian warnings, for those who search mythological cycles for recurring patterns, 3 Atlas raises a question that feels simultaneously ancient and modern. What if these interstellar visitors are not isolated accidents, but indicators of something larger, something cyclical, something that resonates with old stories of distant worlds returning after long absences? What if humanity is not merely witnessing random debris, but the opening movements of a sequence? Hidden within the oldest clay tablets written by scribes who believed they were recording truth rather than fiction lies a warning. The sky, they said, once brought upheaval, and it would do so again when a wandering world returned from the outer darkness. The timing they describe, epoch cycles immense, orbital periods, aligns uncannily with the trajectory that a distant hypothetical world might follow if it existed far beyond Pluto. A world on a tilted path tracing a deep and unseen arc taking vast spans of time to return. A world reminiscent of what later traditions would call Nibiru. For decades, scientists have debated the possibility of an undiscovered distant planet, something massive, remote, and unseen. Some refer to it as Planet 9, others as Planet X. Mathematical models suggest that a large object could indeed be influencing cometary orbits at the fringes of the solar system. Yet in alternative readings of Sumerian mythology, the idea is far older, more symbolic, and more unsettling. According to these interpretations, which must be approached with care and caution, the Anunnaki were not merely mythical beings, but inhabitants of a wandering world that moves in and out of the solar system on an orbit so long that entire civilizations rise and fall between its returns. And if such a world did exist, its arrival would not be abrupt. It would be heralded by signs, disturbances in comet populations, unusual objects entering inner space, subtle anomalies at the edges of the solar system quietly announcing that something long absent may once again be on its way. Some people believe that visitors from beyond our solar system may serve as early signals, as though the cosmos sends smaller messengers ahead of something far larger. They speak of timing, of repeating patterns of coincidences that seem to lean toward intention. 3 interstellar objects appearing in less than 10 years, following millions of years of apparent silence. Oumuamua, 2I Borisov, 3I Atlas. 3 arrivals, 3 anomalies, 3 signs, at least according to certain ancient interpretations. And among them all, the arrival of 3I Atlas stirred the greatest curiosity. Not so much because of what it was, but because of where it seemed to come from. Its path through space appears loosely, speculatively, to align with a region of the sky that some ancient traditions associate with the return route of a wandering world. No scientific study would make such a claim. No astronomer would present this as evidence. Yet within mythological thinking, symbolism carries weight, direction carries meaning, timing carries significance. Cycles matter. And there is something about the arrival of 3I Atlas at this moment that has revived old questions. Questions murmured by those who still sense an ancient strain between humanity and the universe. They are the kinds of questions that surface late at night when the noise of the world fades and imagination becomes a bridge to older modes of thought. What if something truly is approaching on a vast, elongated orbit? What if ancient civilizations witnessed it long ago? What if their warnings were not allegory but recollection? To pursue these ideas, we must look further back into the origins of Sumer, into clay tablets so ancient that modern cities are young by comparison. Tablets that speak of beings who descended, beings who instructed, beings who departed, and beings who pledged to return when the motions of the heavens aligned once more. Breathe slowly. Allow the images to take shape gently in your mind. We are moving into a deeper layer of the narrative, where myth, astronomy, memory, and possibility begin to merge into something ancient, cosmic, and subtly unsettling. There is much still hidden, much to interpret, much to grasp about why ancient societies feared the sky at particular moments, and why people today are beginning to feel a similar unease. But that lies ahead. For now, this is only the beginning. Picture the earliest nights of Sumer, thousands of years before electricity, before telescopes, before city lights diluted the heavens. Darkness then was complete, stretching from one horizon to the other like an immense inverted bowl. Light came only from trembling oil lamps, the soft glow of hearth fires, and above all the stars themselves. To modern eyes, stars are distant objects, beautiful and measurable. To ancient eyes, they were alive. They throbbed with meaning. They moved with purpose. They were the script of the gods written across the night sky. The Sumerians believed the heavens were full, not empty. They were inhabited by beings far older than humanity, beings who shaped fate, beings who had descended once and might descend again. Amid the countless stars, the Sumerians discerned constellations, omens, and repeating forms. They followed the paths of wandering lights, the planets drifting against the fixed star field. They charted lunar cycles with remarkable accuracy. They watched eclipses, comets, and rare celestial visitors. Nothing in the sky was insignificant. So important was this knowledge that entire priestly orders existed solely to read the heavens. These early sky watchers were neither purely mystical nor purely scientific, but something between a role that existed before humanity separated belief from understanding. Their work served daily life. Their readings guided farming. Their forecasts safeguarded the city. Their cautions helped rulers steer through times of peril. Yet there were rare evenings when even these skilled observers felt uneasy. Nights when a light appeared where none should exist. Nights when something luminous cut across the sky at an impossible angle. Nights when an unfamiliar object arrived from a direction unrelated to the known paths of planets or stars. On their tablets, these moments were recorded with care and restraint, as though the writers feared saying too much. A star moved against the others. A torch crossed the sky and did not return. A visitor from the deep cosmic darkness swept silently above their world. For them, such sights were never ordinary astronomical happenings. They were messages. They were cautions. Among the oldest of these cautions were those linked to the Anunnaki. In Sumerian mythology, the Anunnaki appear as entities bound to the sky, the earth, the underworld, and the rhythms of kingship itself. Their functions change across eras, yet their presence is constant. They are depicted as powerful as holders of knowledge, as beings intimately connected to events in the heavens. Some ancient traditions describe them as observers of vast cosmic cycles. Others cast them as judges. Some see them as teachers. Others as bringers of order. And some describe them as beings whose arrivals and departures shaped entire ages of history. The notion that they might return is not a modern invention. It is ancient. It is inscribed in the earliest surviving clay tablets. Interwoven with these accounts is another idea, a celestial body linked to their movement, a world that appears only at great intervals, a world bound to cycles of destiny, a world that draws near to Earth only during moments of profound transformation. Later cultures would name it Nibiru. Whether Nibiru was a physical celestial object, a symbolic construct, or a misunderstood astronomical reference has been debated without end. Yet for the ancient Sumerians, meticulous observers of the sky, Nibiru signified transition. It marked a point in the heavens where the paths of gods and fate converged, a signal of cosmic alignment, an omen of sweeping change. Sumerian priest astronomers paid particular attention to anything unusual that crossed the sky. They believed the heavens spoke through rare events, not ordinary ones. A comet behaving oddly could foretell danger. An object wandering in from beyond the familiar sky could announce the turning of an age. And so, when modern astronomy suddenly identifies not one, not two, but 3 interstellar objects entering our solar system in quick succession, it resonates with something ancient, something the Sumerians would never have dismissed. We live in a time when the night sky is charted, imaged, catalogued, and measured in extraordinary detail. And yet, despite all this knowledge, we still feel something when an object arrives from interstellar space, a faint unease, a quiet curiosity, a deep instinctive whisper, because buried within the human mind, the sky still carries meaning. To understand why, we must step deeper into Sumer itself, into their worldview, their anxieties, their cosmology, and their bond with the heavens. Imagine a thriving Sumerian city, Uruk. Narrow streets twist between sun-baked clay houses. Children run barefoot across dusty ground. Merchants shout the prices of barley fish and dates. Priests move deliberately through temple courtyards carrying incense burners that spill fragrant smoke into the heavy air. Yet above all this sound and movement, at the highest point of the city rises the ziggurat. Its terraces climb like an artificial mountain. Each level grows smaller as it reaches upward toward the sky. At the summit stands a shrine, a meeting place between earth and heaven. The ziggurat is more than a temple. It is an axis, a pivot, a bridge between realms. The Sumerians believed the gods descended along this axis. Omens travelled down through it. Warnings rose upward through it. Among the most carefully watched signs were those connected to the path of Nibiru. In their cosmology, Nibiru was linked to crossings, moments when celestial paths intersected, when cycles concluded, when eras turned. Not all tablets describe it the same way. Some call it a star, some a planet, some a symbol. Some describe it as a gateway, others as a place of passage. But in every interpretation, Nibiru is bound to change. And in the ancient world, change carried immense weight. Change could bring floods, change could bring drought. Change could topple kings or raise them. Change could mean famine or abundance. Change could mean annihilation or renewal. Because the Sumerians believed the sky governed change, they watched it relentlessly. Astronomical anomalies were never ignored, they were interpreted. So imagine them alive today. Imagine Sumerian priests standing beneath modern skies, witnessing our timeline 2017, Oumuamua 2019, Boris 2024, 3AA Atlas, 3 objects from beyond the solar system, arriving in less than a decade. They would not describe it as chance. They would recognize it as structure, as rhythm, and they would begin to ready their cautions. But what precisely did those ancient cautions express? Some spoke of a recurring phase when the sky opens and unfamiliar stars emerge. Others told of a time when the watchers come back. Others still hinted at an era when the realm of the gods draws close once more. These expressions are symbolic. Their interpretations are contested. Absolute certainty is impossible. Yet there is something about them that feels recognizable, not through logic but through intuition. And that is because even contemporary astronomers acknowledge that we are only just beginning to grasp how many objects wander between stars and how many may one day traverse our solar system. The Sumerians, without instruments or technology, sensed something we are only now uncovering with precision tools. The sky is not static. It is dynamic, restless, filled with movement. Celestial visitors do not arrive without order. There are patterns, subtle and complex, that we are only starting to perceive. This leads us to a deeper question. Why did ancient cultures link astronomical cycles to the return of figures such as the Anunnaki? The simplest explanation is psychological. When the world feels unstable, humans search for meaning. But a more profound explanation lies in the nature of myth itself. Ancient myths are not simply tales. They are containers of memory, carrying experience across generations. When floods devastate a land, the memory becomes myth. When a comet terrifies a civilization, its journey is woven into legend. When drought or famine reshapes a kingdom, its cause is lifted into the heavens. Myths are not literal chronicles. They are symbolic records of genuine events. And the Sumerians lived beneath skies that did not behave predictably. Astronomical irregularities altered the course of history. Objects appeared. Visitors arrived. Comets tore through the atmosphere with quiet threat. Brilliant arcs of light fell from the sky. Impacts from space shook the Earth itself. Unfamiliar lights drifted along desert horizons. And so these experiences were encoded into stories. Stories of beings who travelled with the stars, who departed and returned, whose timing was bound to celestial cycles. The Anunnaki may or may not have been physical entities, but the cycles linked to them were rooted in observation. Cycles of transformation, cycles of disruption, cycles of cosmic visitors. And this is what makes present-day events unsettling to those who read mythology symbolically. Because our era, defined by telescopes, satellites, and vast streams of data, has begun to mirror ancient descriptions in surprising ways. Objects arriving from deep space, comets originating beyond the outer cloud, unexpected paths, unusual accelerations, and a growing number of interstellar visitors. This does not demonstrate that ancient warnings were literal. It does not confirm that Nibiru exists. It does not establish that the Anunnaki were beings of flesh and blood. But it does raise a question the ancient world would have treated with gravity. Why now? Why does the solar system appear to be receiving visitors after millions of years of apparent quiet? Why do these arrivals come from directions loosely, symbolically associated with celestial routes described in myth? Why does 3E Atlas appear at a time when modern astronomy is actively searching for a large, unseen world beyond Neptune? Why does the rhythm of interstellar arrivals align with the ancient belief that cosmic signs precede cosmic change? These questions can be interpreted in countless ways. They prove nothing. They simply resonate, echoes that feel familiar across vast stretches of time. If we move further into this resonance, we encounter the earliest narratives of Sumer, accounts of a world before civilization of ancient epochs, when beings descended from the sky and imparted knowledge to early humanity. Some read these stories literally, others see metaphor. Scholars argue, mystics imagine, historians urge caution. Yet regardless of interpretation, a common theme persists. Humanity's relationship with the cosmos is not passive, it is interactive, it unfolds in cycles, it is shaped by events beyond the Earth. As we continue through this narrative, we will descend further into ancient anxieties, ancient memories, and ancient ways of understanding celestial cycles. But for now, allow the image to rest in your mind. Imagine a solitary ancient scribe sitting in a shadowed chamber, patiently pressing symbols into soft clay with a reed stylus. He stops for a moment, lifts his eyes toward the sky, framed by a narrow temple doorway, and notices something luminous, something absent from every familiar constellation drifting slowly along the horizon. He does not shout or panic. He simply watches his pulse steady yet heavy with meaning, aware that appearances like this are never trivial. He turns back to his tablet and carves a careful line. A strange star has entered the sky. 5,000 years later, we find ourselves observing Oumuamua Borisov and 3 Atlas. 3 visitors from beyond our stellar neighborhood, 3 intruders from interstellar space. 3 quiet reminders that the cosmos still behaves in ways that stretch our understanding. And when ancient stories speak of returning worlds of vast cosmic cycles of messages concealed in the sky, it becomes difficult not to wonder whether those warnings were meant for moments such as our own. If you step far enough away from the modern world, away from glowing screens, relentless signals, and constant explanations, you may sense something very old stirring within you. It is a feeling that rarely emerges in the noise of everyday life. It appears instead in stillness when the mind relaxes and becomes receptive. It is the sense that the universe is not static, that something immense is always in motion, always revealing itself. That humanity exists within a story far larger than our own, a story written not only on this planet, but across the deep, slow currents of the cosmos. Ancient civilizations lived with this awareness every day. They stood beneath an unfiltered sky, watching the heavens with an attentiveness that is difficult for us to imagine. The sky was not a backdrop, it was alive. And among these early cultures, the Sumerians represent humanity's first sustained effort to comprehend that living sky, to interpret its patterns, to follow its movements, to extract meaning from its cycles, to understand why the Anunnaki became associated with cosmic change, why Nibiru became linked to long-returning celestial bodies, why the warnings embedded in their stories carried such urgency. To grasp this, we must understand how the Sumerians perceived the universe. Their cosmology was not idle superstition, it was a framework for survival. They lived in a world where floods arrived without notice, where rivers shifted their paths, where harvests depended on uncertain rhythms, where storms could erase entire settlements in a single night. For them, studying the sky was not curiosity, it was essential. The heavens were their clock, the heavens were their calendar, the heavens were their map. Yet beneath this practical relationship with the sky lay something more profound, a philosophical vision grounded in the belief that the universe itself moved through cycles. Cycles of creation, cycles of destruction, cycles of divine presence, cycles of celestial alignment, cycles of rising worlds and returning worlds. In Sumerian thought, nothing was ever truly still. Everything flowed in repeating patterns, and among those patterns was the vast, slow rhythm associated with Nibiru. To an ancient observer, the idea of a celestial visitor returning after immense intervals was not strange. Their world was governed entirely by cycles. The phases of the moon, the daily return of the sun, the recurring appearance of Venus, the turning of the seasons. A longer cycle would simply be a grander rhythm, a deeper cosmic breath, measured not in days but across thousands of years. This idea found its way into the earliest myths. Tales of beings who arrived once, imparted knowledge, shaped civilization, departed, and promised to return when the great cycles of the heavens completed their course. What this truly meant, we cannot know. Yet the pattern endures because modern astronomy is now revealing that worlds can indeed follow extreme elliptical paths, that objects may take thousands, even tens of thousands of years to complete a single orbit around the Sun, that long-period comets spend most of their existence in the cold darkness of deep space only to return briefly dramatically before vanishing once more into the cosmic night. Entire families of distant bodies seem to share a curious tilted clustering of their orbits, a configuration that quietly points toward a powerful gravitational presence we have yet to see. Planet 9, Planet X, a remote world inferred through mathematics rather than observation. Whatever label science ultimately assigns the underlying idea, mirrors in structure, if not in precision, the ancient notion of Nibiru. And when something unfamiliar and unexpected drifts into the solar system, objects like Oumuamua Borisov, 3I Atlas, that ancient intuition begins to feel uncomfortably close. But to grasp the full significance of these recurring patterns, we have to step into the mindset of an ancient astronomer priest, a human being who lived 5,000 years before modern physics, yet observed the night sky with an attentiveness we can scarcely imagine today. Picture him standing atop a ziggurat at midnight. The desert air is cool against the skin. The lamps have been extinguished. Darkness is complete. Only the stars remain sharp and brilliant, untouched by artificial light. He watches the familiar motions, the reliable rising of constellations, the slow wandering of planets, the faint glowing river of the Milky Way stretching overhead. These motions are comforting. They speak of order and repetition, and then something appears. A point of light that does not belong to any known pattern. It moves oddly. It moves on its own path, a foreign star. He has no words for an interstellar object, no knowledge of other planetary systems, no scientific framework to explain visitors from beyond the Sunday. But he understands instinctively that anomalies in the sky are significant. He descends from the temple. He presses symbols into clay with care. The watchers move again. This phrase appears in varied forms across multiple ancient texts. Some have read the watchers as gods, others as angels, others still as symbolic forces, astronomical signs, or even literal beings. Certainty is impossible, but patterns are visible. Ancient cultures linked unusual events in the heavens with the return of forces that altered cycles not out of superstition, but because they had witnessed repetition. Floods, famines, droughts, strange lights in the sky, comets, meteor storms, sudden new stars, and then profound shifts in society. The ancient Near East existed at the mercy of irregular cycles, climate changes, unpredictable rivers, and celestial events. It was entirely natural for them to weave these experiences into myths of returning gods. Among all such cycles, none carried more weight than Nibiru. What distinguished Nibiru was not catastrophe, but timing. It was not bound to yearly or seasonal rhythms, but to immense spans of time. To the Sumerians, time unfolded in layers: daily cycles, seasonal cycles, annual cycles, generational cycles, dynastic cycles, and beyond them all, cosmic cycles. Nibiru belonged to that deepest layer, the cycle of cosmic eras. And because those cycles stretched across vast ages, their consequences became legendary. So when modern astronomy begins to detect interstellar objects entering our solar system at intervals shorter than once imagined, it echoes something ancient, not as evidence but as resonance. The ancient world did not fear the sky. It revered it. It believed the cosmos carried messages for humanity. And as we arrive in the modern age, an age of telescopes, data streams, digital archives, and interstellar detection, we begin to see that ancient worldview reflected in a new guise. Think about contemporary sky surveys. Every night, dozens of telescopes scan the heavens, searching for motion irregularities and unexpected visitors. The pace of discovery has increased dramatically over the last 10 years. Where ancient astronomer priests had ziggurats and clay tablets, modern scientists have CCD sensors and orbital simulations. Yet both observe the same sky, both search for patterns, both seek meaning in motion, and we now ask the same questions the Sumerians once asked. Why now? Why here? Why this sequence? What forces guided these objects toward us? What does their arrival represent? Is there a broader pattern we have not yet recognized? We must be careful. We must resist unsupported conclusions. Interpretations must be framed with discipline. But the questions themselves are timeless. Humanity has always asked them. And when we look at 3I Atlas through ancient eyes that believed the heavens spoke through rare events, we begin to understand why its arrival feels significant, not threatening, not apocalyptic, not proof of anything extraordinary, but meaningful. Because 3I Atlas is not merely a comet, it is a messenger, one of the first genuine interstellar messengers humanity has ever observed. It emerged from deep space. It crossed distances almost beyond comprehension. It entered our solar system quietly, almost shyly, a faint spark drifting through the vast black ocean between stars. And some ancient texts tell us that the return of distant travelers marks the opening of a greater cycle. Whether metaphorical or literal, the parallel is striking. But before we move deeper into Nibiru itself, into its possible identity, its place in myth, its hypothetical orbit, and its connection to recurring patterns of celestial visitors, there is one more essential piece of ancient context we must consider. The Sumerians did not imagine their gods as beings who dwelled permanently in the sky. Instead, they believed the gods journeyed through it. They moved along the pathways of the heavens, passed through the gates of the firmament, crossed the threshold, entered places of transition. These expressions appear again and again across ancient texts. Their precise meanings remain debated. Some interpret them as symbolic language, while others see in them the earliest efforts to describe the mechanics of the cosmos. Yet all interpretations share a common thread: motion. The gods were in motion, the heavens were in motion, cycles turned and returned. Nothing was ever static, and when the Sumerians spoke of Nibiru, they used this same language. They described it as something that moves across vast spans of time, something that crosses boundaries, something that appears rarely yet carries great significance. So, when modern astronomy begins to detect objects entering our solar system from deep space, moving in unfamiliar ways, arriving without warning, it echoes an ancient intuition, the idea that the heavens are home to long-period travelers. Objects that return on timescales so immense they stretch beyond ordinary human comprehension. This resonance proves nothing, but it invites reflection, and that reflection leads us gently, almost imperceptibly, toward the central philosophical question beneath this entire journey. Why do mythic cycles and astronomical cycles feel so intimately connected? Is it coincidence? Is it pattern recognition? Is it symbolic memory, psychological projection, or something deeper still? Some scholars suggest that myths preserve memories of early climatic upheavals, the younger Dryas, the retreat of ice sheets, ancient cosmic impacts. Others propose that myths record genuine astronomical phenomena, brilliant comets, storms of meteors, exploding stars. There are also those who argue that myths encode nothing literal at all, that they are expressions of humanity's struggle to comprehend time, fate, and destiny. Yet a smaller group of thinkers cautiously entertains another possibility: that myths may carry fragmented memories of events humanity once witnessed but could not fully explain. And within this quiet space between science and story, we encounter the idea of Nibiru not as a literal returning planet, not as an unavoidable catastrophe, not as an object of doom, but rather as a symbol of humanity's ancient relationship with the cosmos. A relationship forged through observation, memory, fear, hope, and the belief that the sky itself carries messages meant to guide us across ages. And now, standing on the threshold of our own era of interstellar visitors, we find ourselves asking the very same questions the Sumerians once murmured beneath star-filled skies. What is moving out there in the darkness between the stars? Why is it arriving now? Which cycle is beginning, or which one is ending? What ancient pattern is unfolding once again? To explore these questions, we must journey further, still deeper, into the oldest myths, the oldest warnings, and the earliest depictions of the Anunnaki. We must examine who they were, what they represented, and why their return became linked with the motion of long-travelling celestial bodies. The night grows still, your breathing slows, your thoughts drift backward into deep antiquity. This is where the deeper meanings reside, in the space where history and legend blur into something older than either. To understand why the Anunnaki became associated with returning objects in the sky, we must step into the mindset of the ancient world, into the consciousness of those who recorded humanity's first stories. Their tablets were not inventions. They were not written for amusement. They were attempts to describe reality as it was perceived, a reality shaped by memory, shaped by cycles, shaped by the sky itself. When you read the Sumerian tablets, one thing becomes immediately clear. There is no separation between the earthly and the cosmic. There is no dividing line between sky and soil, between gods and forces, between celestial events and human destiny. Their world was a single system, a living whole, an interconnected web. And within that web existed the Anunnaki. They were not portrayed with the abstract vagueness of later deities. They were assigned roles, genealogies, responsibilities. They arrived. They departed. They intervened in human affairs. They imparted knowledge. They corrected imbalance. They upheld order. In the earliest accounts, they appear almost administrative in nature, a council of higher beings with clearly defined functions. Some oversaw the heavens. Some governed the earth. Some watched the depths. Some guided fate. Some monitored the movement of worlds, and always there was emphasis on motion. The Anunnaki did not reside permanently in temples. They arrived at appointed times. They interacted, they withdrew, and they returned. Over long centuries their stories evolved, yet their essential nature remained unchanged. They were beings of cycles. This is what sets them apart within ancient mythology. Most traditions describe gods who are ever present. Greek gods dwell on Mount Olympus. Egyptian gods inhabit the Duat. Norse gods rule from Asgard. But the Anunnaki are different. They come from somewhere. They go somewhere. And they return from somewhere beyond. This pattern of storytelling is unusual. It hints at something older and deeper, either symbolic in nature or drawn from a long cultural memory. What truly matters is the meaning that was attached to it. When the Anunnaki return, a cycle completes its turn. And when cycles turn, the world is transformed. Look once more at ancient Sumer, a civilization shaped by volatile rivers, shifting climates, floods and droughts, and the rare appearance of extraordinary celestial events. In such a world, beings linked to cosmic cycles would inevitably become woven into narratives of profound change. The ascent of kings, the collapse of cities, the emergence of new eras. These moments were not recorded by the Sumerians as simple political shifts, but as events written into the fabric of the cosmos. A king did not rise by coincidence. He was installed by the gods. A city did not fall through error. Its destruction signaled a change in cosmic equilibrium. A flood was not merely an act of nature. It was a recalibration. Everything pointed back to the sky. So, when we speak of the return of the Anunnaki, we are engaging with an ancient belief that celestial events and human history are reflections of the same recurring cycle. This is what Nibiru symbolized, a threshold, a moment when alignments in the heavens subtly alter the balance of the world, not necessarily through catastrophe or violence, but through significance. This is where many modern interpretations lose their footing. Nibiru is not described in Sumerian sources as a planet arriving to destroy Earth. It is described as a marker, a signal of transition, renewal, and passage from one age to another. Yet the ancients also understood that such markers could bring disruption. Just as seasonal storms can both devastate and restore, this dual nature was fundamental. The gods were believed to bring order or upheaval depending on what the cycle demanded. That same duality appears in modern responses to interstellar visitors. When astronomers detected Oumuamua, fear and fascination erupted together. Was it natural? Was it artificial? A messenger? A warning? Or simply a rock? No single explanation felt sufficient. Its behavior challenged expectations. The acceleration was slight yet measurable. Its rotation confounded specialists. Its reflectivity shifted unpredictably, and it passed through our solar system so swiftly that humanity had scarcely begun to ask questions before it was already gone. Then came Borisov, more clearly comet-like, more familiar yet undeniably alien. Then came 3I Atlas, another traveller from deep space, another visitor. 3 in less than 10 years. For modern science, this is data. For ancient Sumerian reasoning, this is pattern. And so we return again to the Anunnaki, the beings associated with the turning of cosmic cycles. Who were they truly? The answer depends entirely on the lens through which we look. To scholars, they are symbolic deities representing natural forces. To alternative historians, they are visitors from beyond Earth. To mythologists, they are archetypes of the human psyche. To cultural historians, they reflect early systems of authority. Yet across all interpretations, one element remains constant. They came from elsewhere. Elsewhere does not have to mean outer space. It may refer to higher realms, mythic planes, or symbolic landscapes, but the connection to the sky is unmistakable. The Sumerians did not portray the Anunnaki emerging from oceans, forests, or mountains. They showed them descending from the heavens, moving with the stars, traveling along celestial pathways aligned with astronomical cycles. This is why later traditions linked them to Nibiru, not because any tablet claims they lived on a physical planet. None does. But because Nibiru represented transition, alignment, crossing, and return. So when modern records of interstellar objects begin to echo, ancient ideas of foreign stars appearing as cycles shift, a resonance emerges. It may be symbolic, it may be accidental, it may be purely mythological, but the human mind is exquisitely attuned to patterns. And ancient societies were masters of pattern recognition. Their survival depended on it. If flood cycles changed, people starved. If monsoons failed, cities fell. If rivers altered their course, entire settlements disappeared. If an unfamiliar star appeared, calendars required recalibration. The Sumerians could not afford to ignore anomalies. When they recorded warnings, they did so with care. Those warnings were shaped by centuries of observation, memory, and experience. This leads us to one of the most compelling aspects of Sumerian cosmology, the belief that time moves in vast arcs. Today we speak of great years, precessional cycles, and shifting ages. The ancients described the same concepts in different words. Ages rise, ages fall, kingship appears, kingship moves, the heavens shift, and the world responds. This vision of cycles sits at the heart of both mythology and astronomy. It is within the slow, majestic turning of deep time that the idea of Nibiru finds its meaning. Nibiru is not catastrophe. Nibiru is a moment of transition, a signal that one chapter is closing while another quietly opens. In modern retellings, this idea is often reshaped into fear. Yet in the ancient world, it was rooted in awareness. The return of the Anunnaki marked the closing of an age and the emergence of another, not through annihilation, but through transformation. Civilizations recalibrate, power realigns, knowledge reshapes itself, the world moves forward. Now, turn your gaze to the present moment. We exist at a crossroads of profound change. Shifts in climate, revolutions in technology, breakthroughs in science, journeys into deep space, the rise of artificial intelligence, the tightening weave of globalization, the evolution of philosophy. Humanity is passing through a threshold as consequential as any age remembered in myth. And during such moments of transition, objects arrive from beyond our stellar neighborhood. This is coincidence. It is natural. It is understandable. And yet, it is also symbolic. Because while the universe itself carries no intention, the human mind does. We search for meaning. We sense cycles. We feel the turning of eras. Even contemporary astronomers speak in terms of epochs and ages. Even cosmologists describe cosmic inflation, generations of stars, and the evolution of galaxies as processes that unfold in cycles. The universe moves in stages. This was something ancient civilizations felt instinctively. Their myths were not crude attempts at explanation. They were lyrical expressions of realities that science is only now beginning to articulate. Realities of motion, realities of return, realities of cosmic rhythm. The understanding that existence is not fixed, but forever leaning towards something new. And this brings us back to 3 Atlas. When fear is removed, when myth is peeled away, when modern sensationalism is set aside, 3I, Atlas becomes a reminder that the universe is dynamic, a reminder that our solar system does not exist in isolation, a reminder that deep space is rich, not vacant, a reminder that rare visitors do from time to time pass through our cosmic home, a reminder that cycles continue regardless of our attention. For the ancient Sumerians, such moments were sacred. They marked the beginning of questioning the expansion of understanding, the quiet realization that a new age might be taking shape. Whether one accepts Nibiru as literal or symbolic, whether the Anunnaki are viewed as beings or metaphors, whether myth is seen as memory or allegory, the deeper truth remains unchanged. Civilizations flourish in periods of stability and transform in periods of upheaval, and humanity now stands firmly within a cycle of transformation. Every technological leap, every environmental shift, every cultural change points not to an ending but to a turning. Just as the ancients understood, ages do not vanish, they evolve, and the appearance of unusual celestial visitors during times of change has always stirred the human imagination. It is not the objects themselves that unsettle us. It is what they represent, the knowledge that the cycle is turning once more, as it has countless times before and as it will countless times again. And now as you lie here listening, you may sense the quiet weight of this cycle settling around you, not as fear, not as danger, but as comprehension, the understanding that humanity moves within a far greater rhythm, the understanding that ancient peoples perceived this rhythm and gave it voice through stories of returning gods, the understanding that modern science perceives it in the motion of planets, comets, and interstellar wanderers, the understanding that the Anunnaki message was never about apocalypse, but about awareness. Awareness of cycles, awareness of transformation, awareness of the cosmos itself. And in the next segment, we will journey further into the ancient meaning of cosmic return, the symbolic role of messengers from between the stars, and the philosophical notion that humanity may be living at the opening moments of a new age. When you view the ancient world through the eyes of those who lived beneath that vast uninterrupted sky, you begin to see why they believed the heavens were speaking to them. The night was not symbolic, it was not poetic. It was not romantic, it was overwhelming. Picture yourself standing on a vast Sumerian plain at a time before cities cast their glow into the night. Above you, the Milky Way pours across the sky like a luminous river, a cascade of pale fire stretching from horizon to horizon. Thousands of stars shine with a sharpness and intensity that is almost impossible for us to imagine today. Over weeks and months, planets trace their slow, deliberate paths, steady and reliable, marking the passage of time. From time to time, meteors streak across the darkness, carving brief, glowing wounds into the night. Comets appear as faint smudges, then grow night by night like spectral visitors drifting in from regions beyond the known world. And then imagine that on one particular night, amid all these familiar lights, something emerges that simply does not belong. A star that moves against the background, a star that grows brighter, a star that seems to act with purpose. In the ancient records, such objects were given many names. They were foreign stars, messengers, divine torches, warning lights, travelers. They signified something that lay outside the dependable repeating order of the heavens. This is the point where myth and the human mind meet. We depend on regularity. Our bodies are tuned to cycles. We sleep in rhythms. We eat in rhythms. We labor in rhythms. Even our dreams follow rhythms. Life itself is constructed from repetition. And when that repetition is interrupted by something rare, unfamiliar, or out of place, the human brain responds instantly. This is the foundation of omens. Not fear, but attention. The people of the ancient world were always reading signs, not because they were naive or irrational, but because recognizing patterns was essential for survival. An unusual change in a river could signal devastating floods. Altered animal movements could warn of famine. A shift in prevailing winds could announce violent storms. And an unexpected event in the sky suggested that the great cycle itself was changing. Nowhere was this sensitivity to signs more deeply embedded than in the traditions surrounding the Anunnaki. To the Sumerians, the Anunnaki were not distant or abstract deities. They were integrated into everyday existence. They shaped laws, guided agriculture, defined kingship, and structured the cosmos itself. Their mythology was not a collection of wild fantasies. It was a system. And that is precisely why scholars from so many fields, anthropologists, linguists, theologians, astronomers, students of myth, continue to be drawn to Sumerian texts. These narratives do not feel like inventions, they feel like interpretations. They are interpretations of repeating patterns of gradual change of the movements of the heavens. As generations passed, these interpretations evolved into a larger idea, the belief that the Anunnaki departed and that they would one day return. But the crucial question is this: what did return actually mean to an ancient mind? This is where many modern readings lose their way. Return did not imply the arrival of a spacecraft. It did not suggest destruction raining down from the sky. It did not mean a planet colliding with Earth. In ancient languages, return meant renewal. Return meant transition. Return meant the completion of a great cycle. Return meant the opening of a new age. The return of the Anunnaki was symbolic. It marked the moment when the balance of the world shifted into a different state, and in Sumerian thought such shifts were always linked to cycles. Cycles of floods, cycles of seasons, cycles of crops, cycles of stars and planets. One can easily imagine ancient observers standing atop vast ziggurats, night after night, year after year, patiently tracking these patterns. Their work demanded a level of patience that is almost unimaginable today. They recorded the rising of stars over centuries. They followed the phases of the moon with remarkable mathematical care. They identified the backward motions of planets long before the invention of telescopes. When something unusual appeared, they noted it and wove it into their stories. Now imagine a civilization watching the sky continuously for 3,000 years. Consider the patterns that would slowly reveal themselves. They would notice the long cycles of Venus, the gradual shifting of the equinoxes, the rare appearances of comets, the subtle reorientation of the heavens across generations. They would perceive patterns that modern humanity has largely forgotten simply because our collective memory does not extend far enough. And this is where the idea of Nibiru takes on its true significance. Nibiru was not merely a hidden planet or a mysterious world. Nibiru was an idea, a symbol, a way of describing the moment when cosmic cycles reach completion. In certain texts, Nibiru is described as a crossing point, the threshold where one era ends and another begins. Not annihilation, but transformation. The ancient observers were not forecasting disaster. They were describing change. Yet change in the ancient world carried real danger because life was precarious. A single failed harvest could overthrow a ruler. A prolonged drought could erase a city. One catastrophic flood could undo decades of progress. Even a bright comet could be taken as a signal to reorganize power. This constant vulnerability shaped how they understood the universe and how they told their stories. When Nibiru approached, in some interpretations, it was not the end of the world. It was the moment when the world adjusted itself once again. When the Anunnaki were said to return, society was described as reorganizing itself. These narratives are not rooted in fear. They are concerned with timing. And when you approach them this way, not as forecasts of catastrophe, but as symbolic structures that speak about transition, they begin to feel far more coherent. With that perspective in mind, bring your attention forward into the present day. Imagine researchers in modern observatories, eyes fixed on monitors, tracking the motion of objects arriving from beyond our stellar neighborhood. Data arrives steadily, paths adjust, simulations refine themselves. They note 2017 Muamua, 2019 Borisov, 2024, 3i Atlas, 3 visitors from interstellar space appearing within a remarkably short span of time. These objects are not omens of disaster. They present no danger to Earth. They are simply travelers drifting through. But the question naturally arises, why now? Why, after millions of years with no such detections, do 3 appear within a single decade? The explanation could be statistical chance. It could be the result of vastly improved detection methods. It could be coincidence. Yet something about this moment awakens the same impulse that once guided the earliest skywatchers. The sense that patterns matter, that cycles matter, that the universe does not act without structure. Even within modern astrophysics, patterns govern all things. The life cycles of stars, the migration of planets, the motion of galaxies, the reservoirs of comets, interstellar paths, the flow of dark matter, the vast filaments of the cosmos. Nothing in the universe is truly random. Motion obeys laws, and those laws do not eliminate cycles. They give rise to them. So when objects from beyond the solar system pass through more frequently than expected, the human mind detects a rhythm before science fully explains it, because the human mind learned to recognize patterns long before it learned to write equations. This does not imply that 3i Atlas is Nibiru. It does not suggest that the Anunnaki are literal entities returning to Earth. It does not mean that ancient myths foretold modern discoveries. It points to something deeper. Humanity is beginning to perceive what ancient civilizations sensed instinctively, that the solar system is not isolated. It exists within a vast cosmic current. The Sumerians lacked the language of astrophysics to describe that current, so they expressed it through myth. And from this emerges a quiet philosophical insight. Myths are not forecasts, they are mirrors. Mirrors of how humans comprehend the universe. Mirrors of how cycles influence existence. Mirrors of how rare events signal moments of transition. And when societies feel they are standing at the close of one era and the opening of another, they instinctively look upward. This is what the ancient Sumerians did. This is what the ancient Egyptians did. This is what the Maya did. This is what nearly every early culture did. And this is what humanity in its modern form is beginning to do once more. Because change is approaching. Not destructive change, not apocalyptic change, but transformative change. As it has happened many times before, we are passing through a turning point, technologically, culturally, environmentally, spiritually. We sense it, we feel it, not through superstition, but because cycles govern everything. Our climates, our societies, our technologies, our ideas, astronomical cycles, cultural cycles, civilizational cycles. The ancients encoded this understanding in symbols. We encode it in data, yet the underlying truth remains unchanged. We inhabit a universe that moves in immense waves of time. When a wave reaches its peak, the world shifts. When it falls away, the world stabilizes. The concept of Nibiru and the study of interstellar visitors are both expressions of how humanity interprets these waves, one through narrative, one through science. Neither negates the other. Both illuminate something. Something about ourselves, something about the cosmos, something about our position among the stars. Now try to picture this. Far beyond the orbit of Neptune, well past the Kuiper belt, beyond the scattered disk, beyond the frozen stillness of the Oort cloud, space itself begins to blur. There is no boundary, no barrier, no rim to the cosmos. There is only an immense sea of darkness populated by countless unseen wanderers. Some drift without destination. Some are guided by the subtle pull of gravity. Some are the remnants of worlds long destroyed. Some are ancient comets. Some are the scattered remains of stars that lived and died billions of years ago. And every so often, on rare occasions across deep cosmic time, one of these travelers passes close to us. Not by purpose, not by prophecy, not because of legend or design, but simply because the universe is in constant motion. The ancient peoples watched these wanderers and wove them into symbols and omens. We observe them today and translate them into measurements and data. Yet the emotional response remains unchanged. Awe, curiosity, a faint unease, a sense that something meaningful is unfolding even if we cannot fully articulate why. This feeling sits at the heart of tonight's narrative. This is not a story about the return of the Anunnaki. It is not about Nibiru approaching. It is not about 3 Atlas being anything more than a passing visitor. It is about a universe defined by motion. Motion that humanity has always interpreted as part of a greater pattern. And when those patterns change, civilizations change with them. Here we arrive at the philosophical center of what ancient warnings were truly pointing toward. Not fear, not annihilation, but awareness. Awareness that the world evolves as cycles turn. Awareness that humanity must respond and adapt as one age gives way to another. Awareness that the sky above us is not separate from human history. It is woven directly into it. In the next part of this journey, we move deeper into Sumerian mythic cycles, into the concept of ages that rise and fall into the meaning of celestial return, and into why ancient cultures believed the heavens announced transformation long before it became visible on Earth. The night feels gentler now. Your breath becomes slower. The stars of the ancient world hang quietly within your mind. A new age is taking shape just as innumerable ages have formed before it. There is a moment as you sink further into this story when the ancient world begins to feel unexpectedly familiar. The symbols change, the languages change, the landscapes change, but the questions remain, the hopes remain, the fears remain. That quiet sense that life unfolds through unseen cycles never disappears. The Sumerians believed time itself was not a straight path. They believed time curved back on itself. They believed time inhaled and exhaled. They believed time repeated, not in the simple repetition of days or seasons or years, but in vast sweeping motions like the slow breathing of the universe itself. These great motions were known as ages. Each age carried its own character, its own prevailing energy, its own balance between order and chaos. When an age came to an end, the world did not vanish. It changed, sometimes softly, sometimes with violence, sometimes over generations, sometimes in a single lifetime. Myths from cultures across the planet describe this same idea. Ages rise, ages fall. Something arrives, something departs. The heavens shift, the world responds. This concept is not unique to Sumer. It appears in Egyptian dynastic cycles, Hindu yugas, Norse world ages, Greek ages of humanity, Mayan long counts, and Chinese heavenly mandates. Societies separated by oceans and millennia reach the same understanding. Time unfolds in chapters. This matters because the Sumerians linked the turning of these chapters to the movement of the sky, not symbolically, but physically. The heavens marked the beginnings and endings of ages. When particular stars aligned, when rare astronomical objects appeared, when unexpected lights crossed the night sky, these were seen as signals that a cycle was closing. And because unusual celestial events often preceded major upheavals in ancient history, the Sumerians understood the two as inseparable. This connection is the reason the Anunnaki became associated with long cycles and cosmic return. To the ancient mind, anything connected to the heavens was automatically part of the cycle of ages. But before going further, pause and imagine what it meant for an ancient age to end. Picture a city like Eridu or Ur at the height of its power. Towering temples dominate the plains. Cranes lift mud bricks one by one. Markets hum with life. Rituals fill the streets. The world feels stable and permanent. Then the sky changes. An unfamiliar star appears. A comet brightens night after night. Storms behave differently. Rivers flood beyond their banks. Harvests fail. Old kings pass away. New dynasties take their place. Trade routes collapse. Belief systems shift. The world does not end. The world transforms. An experience like this would leave a mark so profound that it could shape myth for thousands of years. Not because someone invented a tale, but because entire generations lived through a change in the very rhythm of existence. To them, the end of an age felt like the return of the gods. So who were the Anunnaki in this framework? They were the personification of cyclical change. Some scholars translate the name as princes, others as those of royal seed, others as the assembly of the gods. But beneath these interpretations lies a deeper symbolic meaning. The Anunnaki were understood as forces that emerge with one age and withdraw with another. So when contemporary readers encounter the word return, they tend to imagine a physical comeback. But that is not what ancient minds perceived. What they heard was that the cycle is turning. Now, if we frame this through the story we are exploring tonight, when an interstellar object passes into our solar system, it does not place us in danger. It does not signal disaster. Instead, it quietly reminds us that the cosmic setting we inhabit is not static. It is a gentle reminder, a silent envoy, almost a symbolic murmur. And when such objects appear during moments of transition, moments when humanity is shifting technologically, philosophically, or environmentally, their significance feels amplified. The ancients would have said that the heavens speak not through words, not through prophecy, but through timing and rhythm. The rhythm of arrival, the rhythm of return, the rhythm of transformation. Now think about this. The Sumerians lived in a world where celestial visitors were rare, unpredictable, and awe-inspiring. When an unusual star crossed the sky, entire cities paid attention. Priests were called, ceremonies were carried out, rulers searched for meaning. Now imagine how they might have responded if 3 such visitors had appeared within 10 years. To the ancient world, that would have suggested the closing of an age. This does not mean that we today should interpret these visitors as omens of catastrophe. It means we should recognize the psychological continuity between ourselves and those who came before us. We still look for patterns. We still sense moments of transition. We still raise our eyes to the sky when the world feels as though it is changing beneath our feet. And there is no doubt that change is underway. Climates are shifting, technologies are accelerating, cultures are evolving, philosophies are being reshaped, boundaries are dissolving, beliefs are transforming, identities are expanding. One age is drawing to a close, not through violence, not through fire, not through collapse, but through transition. This is the central idea hidden within ancient warnings. The return of the gods was never about destruction, it was about movement between epochs. It was about the world restoring balance. But because life felt fragile, the ancients feared these moments. Fear, after all, is simply an awareness of vulnerability. We are less vulnerable now. Our systems are more resilient. Our knowledge is deeper. Our understanding is clearer, yet the instinct remains. So when rare cosmic visitors appear, we do not fear them. We experience them as reminders, as symbols, as subtle indications that the universe is always in motion. This is the philosophical meaning behind the myth of Nibiru. Not a literal planet, not a dramatic vision of catastrophe, but the symbolic truth that ages turn when long cosmic arcs are completed. Nibiru is not a threat. Nibiru is a metaphor. It is a reminder of renewal, a symbol of cosmic timing. And within this symbolic framework, the Anunnaki represent the agents of transition, the forces that preside over the reshaping of the world. Their return simply signals that a new age is beginning. And here is perhaps the most compelling element. Sumerian texts suggest that when the cycle turns, humanity must awaken. Awaken to knowledge, awaken to change, awaken to our place within the cosmos. Awaken to the continuity of ages. This awakening has nothing to do with fear. It has nothing to do with prophecy. It has nothing to do with literal beings descending from the sky. It has everything to do with awareness. The understanding that each age carries lessons forward, and that those lessons must not be forgotten. Ancient civilizations preserved this awareness through stories of returning gods. Modern civilizations preserve it through science, philosophy, and cosmology. Different languages, the same underlying truth. The universe evolves, and we evolve alongside it. Now let us turn our attention once more to 3i Atlas. Not with fear, but with wonder. A small, fragile comet traveling across unimaginable distances, drifting silently through our solar system. It originated in a region where our sun is merely a faint star among billions. It carries dust from places no human will ever visit. Its structure contains secrets older than our planet. Its journey began long before human civilization emerged. When an object like this arrives, it does not endanger the world. It enriches it. It expands our understanding. It reminds us of our place in a vast cosmic setting. It connects us to cycles far older than the Earth itself. And when it appears during a period of human transition, the timing creates symbolism, not physical impact but psychological resonance. This is the same resonance ancient civilizations felt, the same sense of meaning, the same quiet suggestion of change, the same intuition that the world is preparing to enter a new chapter. These feelings do not determine fate, they help us understand it. Because beneath all ancient warnings, all mythic cycles, all celestial symbolism, there is a simple truth. Pay attention when the world changes. Do not fear it, do not resist it. Do not cling to what has passed, simply pay attention. The Sumerians believed that awareness stabilizes the world as ages turn. Awareness leads to wisdom. Wisdom leads to balance. Balance allows for a peaceful transition. This idea may be 5000 years old, yet it feels more relevant now than at almost any other moment in recent history. We stand at the threshold of a new age, not because a planet is returning, not because gods are descending, but because humanity itself is evolving into something more connected, more aware, and more cosmic in the way it understands its place in the universe. When ancient civilizations lifted their eyes to the night sky and witnessed an unfamiliar star igniting the darkness, they felt the fabric of their reality subtly rearrange itself. When modern humanity gazes upward and detects visitors drifting in from interstellar space, a similar sensation arises. A gentle unease, a quiet recognition, a sense that something is moving beneath the surface. Not catastrophe, not fear, simply transition. The slow turning of ages, as it has always happened and as it will continue to happen. We are approaching the next movement in this narrative, the moment where ancient warnings evolve from the practical into the philosophical, from outward symbols into inward reflection. But before we step further, pause with this understanding. Humanity has always possessed an instinct for sensing when the rhythm of the world shifts, and that instinct is stirring once more. At some point along this path between the ancient sky and the modern one, it becomes clear that the unfolding story is not truly about comets, planets, or deities. It is something far more intimate, quieter, something that resonates within us just as much as it echoes through myth and memory. It is the realization that humanity has passed through many ages, and each age leaves behind a faint imprint, a residue that survives in stories long after the people themselves have vanished. This imprint is not scientific data. It is emotional. It is symbolic. It is instinctive. It is the memory of change itself. The Sumerians pressed their memories into clay. The Egyptians etched theirs into stone. The Maya wove theirs into cycles of time. The Chinese carried theirs through dynastic philosophy. The Greeks shaped theirs into myth. We encode ours in science. Different vessels, the same underlying remembrance. And now, as objects from beyond our solar system pass through our skies for the first time in recorded human history, that ancient memory stirs again. There is no panic here, no superstition, only a deep, intuitive awareness that something larger than us is unfolding quietly in the background. This is why we return to the Sumerians, because they were among the first to articulate humanity's sense that the heavens govern the rhythm of ages. To them, the sky functioned as a calendar of destiny, a cosmic manuscript, a shifting diagram of intention written across the stars. And the Anunnaki, whatever their true nature may have been, were associated with the turning of this immense celestial cycle. But who were the Anunnaki really? To grasp their meaning, we must step back into a time before the world divided the sacred from the scientific, before astronomy and myth became separate languages, before stories were dismissed as fiction. In the ancient world, truth was not constrained the way it is today. Truth was not limited to literal accuracy. It existed on a deeper level. Picture an ancient storyteller beneath a sky ablaze with stars speaking of beings descending from the heavens and reshaping humanity. To him, the tale was neither purely literal nor purely symbolic. It was both at once. It captured real experiences, extraordinary events in the sky that inspired awe and fear, and it conveyed inner truths, the invisible forces that guide civilizations. The Anunnaki occupied this shared space. They functioned as cosmic forces, psychological archetypes, and symbolic expressions of how the world moves through transformation. Their myth endured for 5000 years, not because the Sumerians were inventing fantasies, but because they were describing patterns. Patterns observed in nature, patterns recognized in history, patterns traced across the heavens, patterns that repeat. The Anunnaki represented the return of these patterns. Their arrival marked the dawn of a new age. Their departure signaled the closing of an old one. This is precisely the framework that gives meaning to Nibiru. Nibiru was not simply a planet. It symbolized the crossing of cycles, the moment when one era yields to the next. It was the intersection point, a cosmic marker where past and future briefly touched. So when ancient astronomer priests observed rare celestial visitors, they interpreted them through this language of cycles. A wandering star indicated that the cycle was shifting. An unexpected object suggested the heavens were communicating. A comet brightening in the sky implied that the seasons of fate were turning. A meteor storm spoke of renewal or danger, and a rare long-period object entering the inner sky signaled that the crossing place Nibiru was aligning once more. Not in a literal sense, but symbolically. Modern astronomers describe such phenomena with equations. Ancient astronomers expressed them through metaphor, yet both approaches speak of the same underlying reality. The world evolves in patterns. Now, consider this. Humanity is not alone in sensing change. Animals perceive it, plants respond to it, climate systems register it, oceans adjust to it, migration routes shift, even cellular life reacts to it. Why then would civilizations be any different? This is why ancient peoples believed the Anunnaki returned at the ends of ages, not because physical beings descended from the sky, but because societies could feel when an era was turning. They sensed it in much the same way we do now. And if we listen carefully, we recognize the signs, even if we no longer speak the same symbolic language. We feel the pressure of transformation. We feel knowledge accelerating. We feel the strain between tradition and innovation. We feel the instability of climate. We feel technology reshaping identity. We feel boundaries dissolving. We feel humanity approaching a threshold. This is how ages conclude. Not through annihilation, but through transformation. The ancients gave this transformation a face, a story, and called it the return of cosmic beings. We often describe these moments as global shifts, different metaphors, yet the same underlying meaning. So let us return to 3 Atlas. Not as a portent, not as a threat, but as a symbol of movement between the stars, a symbol of cosmic connectedness, a symbol of how even the smallest events can carry extraordinary significance when they arrive at precisely the right moment. A symbol of cycles completing and beginning anew. Consider the timing. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, 3 Atlas in 2024, 3 visitors from the depths of interstellar space. 3 reminders that the cosmos is in constant motion. 3 events humanity had never observed before this modern era. To the ancient Sumerians, 3 signs appearing in sequence would never have been dismissed as chance. 3 was the number of confirmation. It was the number that signaled the heavens were speaking with clarity. Modern science, of course, does not operate through symbols. It operates through measurement and evidence. And the data tell us these objects are natural, not dangerous, not anomalous in any threatening sense. Yet data alone cannot erase meaning. Meaning emerges from interpretation. Meaning emerges from timing. Meaning emerges from resonance. And resonance is the bridge between ancient mythic cycles and modern cosmic discovery. This does not imply that myths are literal accounts. It suggests that myths describe how human beings understand life within repeating cycles of change. When the Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki returning at the end of a cycle, they were expressing the idea that transformation arrives when an age gives way to another. And when they spoke of Nibiru as a crossing place, they were describing how cosmic alignment marks a turning point in the world. Now consider where we stand today. A global civilization stepping into a new technological era, confronting environmental change, reshaping ideas of identity, relearning our place in the universe, and witnessing the arrival of the first interstellar objects ever recorded by our species. Seen through ancient eyes, this moment would look unmistakably like the closing of an age. And perhaps that is why the story of Nibiru endures. Not because a hidden planet is approaching. There is no evidence for that, and the ancient texts do not describe it in a literal sense. Nibiru endures because it is a perfect symbol for how humanity feels during profound transition. The crossing point, the bridge between epochs, the cosmic threshold. So why did the Sumerians associate this threshold with the Anunnaki? Because the Anunnaki represented forces of change. They were symbols of knowledge, of reordered worlds, of guardianship over transitions of the rhythms of cycles themselves. When they returned, humanity entered a new phase of existence. Now, step away from myth and into the landscape of psychology. What the Sumerians described as returning gods may simply have been moments of civilizational transformation, the return of knowledge, the return of innovation, the return of renewal, the return of evolution. Just as modern ages begin with new ideas, new technologies, new systems, and new understandings, ancient ages began with new identities, new forms of kingship, new calendars, and new social structures. The return of the Anunnaki was in essence the return of change itself. So the story before us is not asking whether the Anunnaki truly exist or whether Nibiru is real. It is asking why humanity feels cycles so deeply, and why rare visitors from beyond our solar system awaken something ancient within us. Because they remind us that we belong to something vast, something older than humanity, something written into the movement of the stars. For thousands of years, humans have expressed this awareness through myth. Today we call it symbolism. To ancient people it was simply truth, a truth the night sky still murmurs to us. Now imagine the solar system as the ancients once did, a vast disk of wandering lights drifting through endless darkness. Imagine a slow traveler lingering at the edge, a comet, an object, a world. Imagine it sweeping inward once every great age. Imagine civilizations watching, remembering, interpreting. The object need not be literal to hold meaning. It becomes symbol, myth, metaphor, a language for cosmic return. And that alone is enough to shape a worldview. What the Sumerians encoded in their stories of the Anunnaki and Nibiru was not astronomy, it was philosophy. A philosophy that guided them through moments when ages shifted. Prepare, reflect, seek balance, renew, adapt. This was the true meaning of the return of the gods, and here we arrive at the heart of the mystery. Why does humanity feel that we are living through a turning of ages now? Because we are moving through transformation. When we observe interstellar visitors, we are not witnessing omens. We are witnessing ourselves reflected in a cosmic mirror. We are witnessing the universe in motion. We are witnessing cycles unfolding. We are witnessing humanity in motion. The ancients would say the Anunnaki are returning. Modern thinkers would say we are evolving. Both describe the same reality. In the next movement of this story, we will explore the deeper philosophical meaning of return, the symbolism of interstellar travel, and the ancient belief that knowledge itself arrives in cosmic cycles. The night softens, your breathing slows. The rhythm of the cosmos draws you inward. A new age is forming, as it always has, as it always will. As the ancient world fades behind us, and the modern world comes into focus, you may sense a quiet tension, a subtle thread linking two eras that seem impossibly distant. One shaped clay tablets by firelight, the other shapes spacecraft and telescopes beneath cool blue screens. And yet at their core, both lift their gaze to the sky with the same question: what is arriving from the darkness? Because there is something unsettling and yet profoundly comforting about rare visitors coming from beyond the bounds of the solar system. They remind us that the cosmos is not sealed off, not a room with walls. They remind us that the universe remains unfinished, still capable of surprising us. They remind us that the sky above is not a rigid ceiling, but an opening, a passage beyond our immediate world. Ancient civilizations understood this opening through stories and symbols. We understand it through physics and observation, yet the opening itself has never changed. In ancient thought, the Anunnaki occupied that threshold, figures tied to transition watchers of cosmic turning points. Their narratives spoke of epochs that emerged, collapsed, and were renewed through their return. To grasp the deeper meaning behind these myths, we must consider another layer of ancient understanding, the idea that knowledge itself is cyclical. To the Sumerians, knowledge did not simply accumulate over time. It descended, it withdrew, and it returned again. They did not believe that wisdom was invented by humans. They believed it was rediscovered in repeating cycles guided by forces linked to the heavens. In one of the earliest Sumerian inscriptions, there is a line that continues to puzzle scholars: wisdom comes from the stars. Some see this as poetic language. Others view it as a spiritual concept. Others still consider it a memory of astronomical influence. Some take it even more literally. Yet the true significance lies within the structure of the idea. Wisdom descends, wisdom recedes, wisdom comes back. This rhythm of knowledge reflects the rhythm of eras of civilizations and of celestial visitors. Humanity forgets, humanity recalls, humanity learns once more. And these acts of remembering often coincide with moments of change in the cosmos. Picture this. A Sumerian astronomer priest looks upward and notices a rare object moving through the sky. For him, this is not merely something to observe. It is a message that the world itself is shifting. It tells him his civilization must prepare for renewal. It tells him that old knowledge must be re-examined. It tells him that new knowledge is about to arrive. Now picture a modern astronomer tracing the path of Oumuamua on a digital display. She understands it as natural physical, governed by laws we can describe, and yet she feels something familiar, a quiet curiosity, a subtle stirring, a sense of connection. The object is small and harmless, but it awakens something ancient because the human mind has not changed as much as we like to believe. We still search for meaning, We still recognize cycles. We still feel the pulse of transformation. This is why the mythology surrounding Nibiru endures, even though ancient texts never describe it as a world of collision or destruction. Nibiru is not a story of catastrophe. It is a story of transition between ages. It represents the crossing point, the threshold, the moment of turning. And 3i Atlas, drifting silently through space, becomes symbolic, not because it fulfills the myth, but because it appears at a time when humanity is once again instinctively searching for meaning. Some may wonder why we look to the heavens when the world begins to change. The answer predates written history. Human beings are pattern-seeking by nature. We are shaped to read our surroundings in order to survive. When something rare appears, we assign importance to it. When the world shifts, we look for signs. When we stand on the brink of transformation, we seek direction. Ancient cultures express this through myth. We express it through scientific inquiry. Both arise from the same impulse, the need to understand what comes next. Now imagine ancient Sumer not as a crude society, but as a culture deeply attuned to natural rhythms. Their astronomers tracked lunar cycles with such precision that modern researchers still admire their accuracy. Their calendars align with solstices and equinoxes across thousands of years. Their star records captured motions that scientists only confirmed in the last century. When a civilization like this witnessed a celestial visitor behaving in an unusual way, it made sense to link it to their philosophy of cycles. A visitor signaled transition. Transition signaled a shift in ages. A shift in ages signaled renewal. Renewal meant the return of divine forces. This is how the Anunnaki became associated with cosmic timing. But who were the Anunnaki at a deeper level? Modern interpretations often force a choice. Either they were beings from beyond Earth, or they were purely symbolic gods. The ancient mind did not separate ideas this way. To them, gods were forces, patterns, intelligences woven into the fabric of reality. They were not somewhere else. They were the intelligence of cycles, the wisdom of the universe, the motion of ages, the restoration of balance. Their return was not a physical arrival. It was a realignment of the world itself. When balance was lost through injustice, tyranny, drought, famine, or upheaval, the cycle would turn and the Anunnaki would return, not as physical entities, but as forces drawing the world back toward equilibrium. This is the philosophical reading, a reading that understands myth as metaphor rather than prediction, a reading that sees gods as expressions of cosmic principles. From this perspective, the Anunnaki are not visitors from elsewhere. They are the embodiment of renewal, and Nibiru is not a planet. It is the point of return, the place of crossing the pivot of ages. What does this have to do with 3i Atlas, or Oumuamua, or objects arriving from beyond our solar system? More than it might first appear, not because these objects pose a threat. They do not. But because they remind us that the cosmos is engaging with us right now, that humanity exists at a moment when ancient knowledge is resurfacing. At moments when fresh understanding begins to settle, when the world subtly shifts its direction once more, the ancient Sumerians believed such times demanded attention. Not attention driven by prediction, not by alarm, not by visions of collapse, but attention grounded in insight. This belief echoes again and again through ancient mythology. Those who learn to read the motion of the heavens, they said, will learn to read the motion of the world itself. To grasp cycles is to loosen the grip of fear. You adapt. You change, you grow aware, you awaken. That is the deeper meaning behind the idea of cosmic return. It was never about wandering planets. It was never about divine beings. It was never about destruction. It speaks instead of consciousness, of awareness, of aligning oneself with the steady flow of time. In the modern world, myth is often dismissed as something obsolete, yet myths were simply the earliest language for recording psychological truth. And within Sumerian stories lies a clear message. Humanity must learn to move with cycles rather than struggle against them. The world transforms. Civilizations rise and they fall. Knowledge disappears, then re-emerges. Cultures reshape themselves. Ideas evolve. And throughout it all, the sky stands as a silent observer. When we revisit ancient warnings with a calm and reflective perspective, their meaning becomes clear. Remain awake when the world changes. Not afraid, awake. Because fear blurs perception, while awareness sharpens it. This story is not concerned with literal prophecy. It does not aim to forecast events. It is not rooted in visions of catastrophe. It invites us instead into the mindset of ancient societies and asks why in moments of transition they turned their gaze upward, and the truth is we do exactly the same. When the ground beneath us feels uncertain, we look to the sky, not to flee but to orient ourselves. Whether we seek meaning, information, or reassurance, the impulse is identical. We reach for the heavens when the future feels unclear. The sky becomes a psychological anchor, a cosmic reference, reminding us that change has always occurred, that it has unfolded countless times before, and that we have always adapted. The Sumerians wove this entire way of thinking into the myth of the Anunnaki returning at the close of ages. That return was never about ruin. It symbolized guidance, a signal that transformation was underway, and that humanity must transform alongside it. This is why this story draws you inward, not toward fear, but toward comprehension. Objects moving between the stars are not portents, they are reminders that we belong to something far larger than ourselves. A vast system shaped by cycles, motion, and renewal. And as we drift toward the final movement of this reflection, where ancient warnings turn into mirrors held up to humanity itself, the night softens your breathing, steadies your thoughts slow. You are carried by a cosmic rhythm, because the ultimate truth behind ancient cycles does not reside in the heavens alone. It resides within us. As we move deeper into this inherited memory, the quiet understanding that the world is never fixed but always in motion, something subtle begins to emerge at the center of all we have explored. Something easily overlooked amid tales of gods, epochs, and visitors from the sky. It is the recognition that humanity has always been seeking the same answer. What is our place within the great cycles of the universe? The Sumerians answered through myth. Modern science answers through data, yet the question itself has never changed. At the core of ancient warnings, at the center of cosmic narratives, at the heart of the Anunnaki and of Nibiru, there is no fear. There is identity. Who are we in relation to the cosmos? Are we alone? Are we guided? Are we accidental? Are we significant? Are we participants in cycles we scarcely comprehend? These questions predate written language. They echo through temples and observatories, through bedtime stories and dreams. Ancient civilizations felt this connection deeply. They lived beneath skies that were visible each night, undimmed, vast, impossible to ignore. The universe surrounded them constantly. It breathed above them. It moved above them. It watched over them. They did not see themselves as separate from the cosmos. They understood themselves as woven into it. This is why the Anunnaki were never somewhere else. They were never distant or removed. They were not detached gods standing apart from humanity. They were present, intertwined with the fabric of cycles embedded within the breath of time itself. And this is why Nibiru was never a threat. It was a reminder that change is not punishment. Change is not disaster. Change is not an ending. Change is the fundamental nature of existence. Every flood that reshaped the lands of the Tigris and Euphrates also renewed the soil. Every drought that challenged civilizations also sparked invention. Every shift in power opened space for new ways of thinking. Every collapse cleared the ground for what came next. This is the cadence of the ages. Now consider how we speak of change today. We speak of disruption. We speak of crisis. We speak of uncertainty. We cling tightly to stability even when transformation is unavoidable. The ancient world saw it differently. They understood change as an intrinsic feature of the universe itself, something woven into the fabric of reality, something to be accepted, explored, and comprehended rather than feared. When the sky altered its appearance, they did not interpret it as retribution. They interpreted it as transformation. In this symbolic framework, the Anunnaki were not agents of destruction. They functioned as guides. Not guides in a literal or physical sense, but guides in a symbolic and philosophical one. They served as reminders for humanity to adapt, to evolve, to reflect inwardly, to reorganize its structures, and to grow alongside a changing cosmos. These insights were not expressed through equations or measurements, but through myth, because myth was the language ancient cultures used to map reality. Today, science fulfills that role, yet science and myth ultimately pursue the same objective. They help us locate ourselves within the vastness of the universe. The Sumerians gazed at an uncommon star and perceived meaning. We observe a rare interstellar object and record a data point. Different lenses, identical motivation. The drive to search for meaning. The drive to comprehend change. The drive to situate ourselves within something far greater than our individual lives. This is why the story of Nibiru remains so compelling once modern exaggeration is stripped away. The notion that the universe operates through rhythms that coincide with human transformation, is profoundly poetic and deeply intuitive. Contemporary astrophysics also acknowledges that the cosmos is cyclical. There are cycles of stellar formation cycles governing orbital motion, cycles of planetary resonance, cycles of cometary return, and cycles of galactic rotation. Wherever we look, the universe moves and breathes in repeating patterns. It is reasonable then to ask why human history would be exempt from such structure. Ancient cultures believed that the rise and collapse of civilizations mirrored celestial rhythms. And if we observe without preconception, simply watching carefully, we can see reflections of this idea. Civilizations thrive when environmental conditions reach stability. Civilizations transform when those conditions change. Civilizations innovate when confronted with challenge. Civilizations decline when adaptation fails. This is not mysticism. It is ecology. It is anthropology. It is psychology. It is astronomy. It is the intricate interaction between nature and culture that defines every age. The Sumerians embedded this understanding in narrative form. And although their symbolic language encourages modern readers to pursue literal explanations, the underlying message consistently concerns cycles of change. The return of the Anunnaki symbolized a shift in the universe. The approach of Nibiru represented the completion of a cycle. The renewal of the world reflected the transformation of civilization itself. This perspective does not dismiss mythology, it uncovers its depth. It respects ancient intelligence rather than diminishing it as confusion. And myth is not confined to the past. It is psychological as well as historical. When ancient societies spoke of the return of the Anunnaki, they were describing the return of awareness. Awareness of humanity's position in the cosmos. Awareness of how fragile stability truly is. Awareness that change is essential. Awareness that wisdom matters. Modern humanity, after centuries of rapid technological advancement, is beginning to feel this awareness re-emerge, because change is once again approaching. Not as a planet, not as deities, but as understanding. For the first time in human history, we can directly observe visitors from beyond our solar system. We can chart the outer boundaries of the solar system. We can detect worlds orbiting distant stars. We can model cosmic motion with remarkable precision. We are rediscovering the cosmic context that ancient civilizations sensed instinctively. This is the deeper meaning behind the idea of the Anunnaki returning. It does not refer to beings descending from the sky. It refers to humanity rising in comprehension. Consider this. For thousands of years, humans feared darkness. We feared the unknown. We feared the sky itself. Now we explore it. We have sent probes to the outer planets. We have photographed comets. We have detected interstellar objects. We have mapped the Milky Way. We have identified planets beyond our own star. We have modeled gravitational waves. The ancients looked upward with their senses. We look upward with instruments, yet the feeling remains unchanged. Even the most rational astronomer experiences a quiet shiver when something arrives from interstellar space. Not a shiver of fear, but one of connection, because in that instant, something deeply rooted in the human mind is stirred. We remember that we are part of something vastly larger than the world beneath our feet. This sensation, this sense of belonging, is what ancient myths expressed as the return of the gods. The reality, however, is more subtle. It is the return of perspective, the return of cosmic awareness, the return of the understanding that humanity is not isolated but embedded within a living universe. Interstellar visitors are not the cause of this awakening. They stand as symbols of it, because when something arrives from the deep darkness between the stars, it compels us to remember that the universe is immense, restless, and saturated with mystery. That recollection is the modern echo of what ancient cultures once expressed through the Anunnaki. The gods themselves have not returned. Awareness has. Consider humanity at this moment. Our technologies are advancing at a pace far quicker than our philosophies. Our instruments of power are growing faster than our capacity for wisdom. Our networks of connection expand more rapidly than our ability to truly understand one another. Knowledge accelerates, yet our sense of balance falters. This strain, this instability is the signature of an era on the verge of transformation. When eras shift, ancient myths speak of the return of the Anunnaki, not as agents of punishment or destruction, but as forces of recalibration, restoring harmony between humanity and its cosmic setting. This reading may appear symbolic, and it is, but symbols convey truths that literal language often cannot reach. When ancient texts are approached in this way, their stories change shape. The gods are not beings roaming the cosmos. They are processes of the cosmos itself. Nibiru is not a concealed planet. It is a metaphor for transition. The warnings are not predictions of events to come. They are psychological signposts. And interstellar visitors are not omens of doom. They are mirrors, reflecting an ancient understanding that every age concludes not in collapse, but in renewal. Imagine yourself lying beneath a night sky, as the ancient Sumerians once did. The air is cool, the stars shimmer overhead, the earth is still, the universe stretches endlessly. You feel small yet not unimportant. You feel fleeting yet part of something timeless. You sense the turning of an age, not as fear, not as prophecy, but as a subtle change in the fabric of existence itself. This is the message concealed within the Anunnaki. This is the meaning embedded in Nibiru. This is the wisdom woven through the myths of ages past. The final step of this journey is to grasp what this turning signifies for humanity now. For the cycle is shifting once more, and the ancients believed that when such a turn occurs, humanity is offered a moment of clarity, a chance to awaken. In the next and final segment, we will step gently into that moment of clarity, into the deeper meaning of the Anunnaki warning, into the symbolic truth behind the three-eyed Atlas, and into the quiet closing message that guides the listener toward rest. There comes a point in every long journey, particularly one spanning thousands of years, when the story turns inward. At that moment, the outer mysteries scattered across tablets, ruins, star charts, and cosmic dust begin to reflect something internal, something about the listener, something about the silent mind within the vast world. That moment has arrived, because the final lesson of the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, Nibiru, and the cosmic visitors drifting through our solar system is not about what exists beyond the stars. It is about what exists within us. All ancient myths, once their symbols are uncovered, speak to the human need to understand change. And when the world shifts, when it moves beneath our feet in ways we cannot yet fully describe, we search for meaning. The Sumerians searched for meaning by observing the sky. They believed the heavens revealed transitions long before the earth could feel them. They believed rare visitors, rare alignments, and rare anomalies carried messages. Not messages in words, but symbolic ones. Reminders that humanity was preparing to enter a new chapter. And they believed that at these moments of transition, the Anunnaki returned. But return in ancient language does not describe beings descending from above. Return describes awareness rising from within. Beware of reading myths, literally. They were never intended to be literal. Beware of reading them as prophecy. They were never meant to predict. Beware of reading them as warnings. They were guidance, not threats. The Sumerians believed the Anunnaki returned when civilizations needed to awaken, not when they needed to fear. The ending of a cycle did not imply destruction. The beginning of a cycle did not promise salvation. A cycle turning meant learning. That is what we have forgotten. We tend to see ancient stories as distant, primitive, or strange, yet they were simply early human attempts to understand reality, reality as it was felt and experienced. Reality as humanity has experienced it. Reality as humanity has trembled before it. Reality as humanity has imagined it might one day become. And when we look at our world now, at the rapid expansion of knowledge, the fragility of long-standing systems, the reshaping of who we think we are, the relentless advance of technology, the changing environment, the deepening global interconnection, we are sensing something profoundly familiar. We are sensing what ancient civilizations sensed before us. We are feeling an age shift. This is not mysticism. It is not metaphor. It is not superstition. It is observation. History unfolds in patterns. Civilizations rise and fall along arcs. Humanity advances in waves. This story is not about a concealed planet or a literal prediction. It is about an insight ancient peoples reached long before telescopes existed. They understood that change arrives in cycles, and that cycles carry possibility. The appearance of interstellar visitors Oumuamua Borisov 3A Atlas is not a menace. It is part of the universe in motion, yet their timing resonates with myth because myth is how humans give meaning to timing. The Sumerians would have looked skyward and said the heavens are moving. Prepare for renewal, prepare for knowledge, prepare for awakening, not because the objects themselves cause transformation, but because they remind us that transformation is already underway. The psychological force of celestial visitors does not lie in their physical mass or trajectory. It lies in what they represent. The sky continues to move, the cosmos remains alive, and we are still bound to it. This sensation is ancient, older than writing, older than farming, older than cities themselves. It is the feeling humans have always carried while gazing into the vast darkness above. The quiet certainty that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. And now, after millennia, we are rediscovering that awareness. We no longer dread the night sky. We explore it, we chart it, we journey through it. Yet the sense of wonder endures, a wonder that draws us inward even as our eyes look outward. The Sumerians expressed this wonder through the Anunnaki, the Egyptians through the Duat, the Maya through the long count, the Greeks through the ages of man, and we express it through science, through philosophy, through cosmology, through the subtle intuition that something is shifting once again. Not the return of gods, but the return of understanding. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of the Anunnaki returning. They meant that humanity would remember. Remember what? Not myths, not predictions, not fear. Remember connection. Connection to the sky, to time, to cycles, to the universe, to ourselves. Somewhere along the long path of civilization, we forgot that we are not separate from the earth, nor from the cosmos, nor from the ages that shaped us. We forgot that humans also move in cycles. We grow, we fall apart, we rediscover, we expand, we evolve, and each time evolution approaches, we sense the change before we comprehend it. That is what return truly means. Now imagine something gentler, something quieter. Imagine standing on ancient ground, Sumerian ground, the dust warm beneath your feet. The horizon stretches wide and flat. The air carries the taste of clay and smoke. The wind speaks in a low murmur. Night descends above you. The stars glow with a clarity lost to modern skies. You recognize the constellations, the ones used to mark time, to foresee seasons, to guide farmers and travelers alike. And then, a new light drifts across the sky, slow, steady, silent. It is not a planet. It is not a known star. It is something unfamiliar. You watch without fear. You watch with curiosity, with reverence, guided by the ancient instinct that rare events carry meaning. You do not sense danger. You sense time turning. This is how the ancients read the heavens, not as warnings of catastrophe, but as markers of rhythm, the rhythm of cycles, of endings, of beginnings, of ages. Now return to the present day, to telescopes, surveying every horizon, to digital maps of the cosmos, to scientists tracking interstellar objects with a precision unimaginable to ancient minds. And realize this: we are witnessing something no human civilization has ever witnessed before. We are observing interstellar objects passing through our solar system in real time. The cosmos is no longer distant. It is entering our neighborhood, not as a threat, but as a reminder of connection. Connection to the greater system that ancient myths gave form to. Connection to the cycles that shape worlds and civilizations alike. A recognition that humanity is not the focal point of existence, but a participant within its vast current. That, at its core, is what the ancient idea of return was always pointing toward. And now, as we drift into the final hushed curve of tonight's journey, you may notice yourself settling further into calm, into thought, into that gentle threshold between being awake and falling asleep. Because the stories of the ancient world were never crafted to disturb those who listened. They were shaped to lead the mind toward contemplation, to allow rest to arrive alongside insight rather than anxiety. So allow yourself to rest within the silence. Let the pressures of the day loosen their grip. Let the rhythm of this story slow and soften, as though the universe itself is breathing out around you. There is only one movement remaining, a final passage, a last inward descent to the core of the myth. It is a descent toward the deeper reason ancient peoples watched the skies so carefully, why they embedded messages in their stories, and why those messages were never meant to inspire fear. They were meant to prepare the mind, the spirit, the heart, not for disaster but for comprehension. In this last phase, we step into that comprehension. We turn toward the final message concealed within the ancient warnings, a message that speaks directly to the listener, now at rest, breathing steadily, gently supported by the night. As we move into the closing stretch of this long floating passage, the clamour of the modern world begins to dissolve. What remains is something far older, far quieter, and unexpectedly reassuring. A sense that the story of the cosmos, the story of early civilizations, and the story of this present moment are woven together as one continuous strand. A strand extending across immense spans of time. A strand linking every culture that has ever raised its eyes to the stars. A strand that connects you here and now to those who once etched symbols into clay beneath the glow of torchlight in ancient Sumer. Because despite the thousands of years that lie between us, the feeling at the heart of their stories has endured unchanged. The experience of standing beneath a sky scattered with stars, the sensation that the universe is alive and responsive. the quiet knowing that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. This feeling is shared across all eras. It belongs to every age. It belongs to every civilization. It belongs to every human being who has ever asked why the heavens move as they do. And within this shared feeling, the deeper meaning of the Anunnaki myth reveals itself. The warnings of the ancients were never intended to terrify. They were meant to illuminate, to draw attention to the rhythms that govern the world, to remind humanity that time moves in cycles. They serve to guide societies through periods of change, to help people recognize their place within the long flow of time. Tonight, as you rest within the gentle cadence of this narrative, you may sense that same guidance, a quiet reassurance that the world is changing, yet change does not mean collapse. Transformation does not mean an ending. It is simply the universe drawing breath. The ancient Sumerians understood this with remarkable clarity. For them, the Anunnaki were not literal beings descending in fire from the sky. They were symbols of transformation, of returning wisdom, of renewal. Their return was not physical in nature, it was philosophical. It signaled the approach of a new level of awareness for humanity. This is the subtle truth resting beneath the myth. The return of the Anunnaki represents the return of understanding, an understanding that fades and re-emerges, an understanding that moves in cycles throughout history, an understanding that seems to awaken precisely when humanity requires it most. This awakening was encoded in the symbol of Nibiru, the place of crossing, the moment when cycles turn the hinge between one age and the next. Nibiru was never a symbol of annihilation. It was a metaphor for the instant when the universe invites humanity to grow. In the modern world, that invitation arrives in a different form, not through myth or prophecy or fear. It arrives through knowledge, through technology, through an expanding awareness of the cosmos, through exploration and understanding. And within this expanding awareness emerges the quiet wonder of visitors from beyond the stars. O Muamua Boris III Atlas. These objects are not omens of disaster nor signals of a return. They are evidence that the boundary between worlds has never been closed. They remind us that the solar system is not a sealed bubble but a meeting place, a region where travelers pass through, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes surprising, sometimes understood only by those generations prepared to see them. We are that generation, the first humans to detect visitors arriving from beyond our star, the first to trace their paths with care, the first to observe them crossing our cosmic neighborhood with accuracy, the first to realize that our world is not alone, not isolated, not motionless. To an ancient observer, this would have felt like the opening of a new age, not because a threat approaches, but because an old awareness is returning. The realization that the universe is alive with motion and that humanity is learning once more to pay attention. The oldest insight hidden within Sumerian myth is that cycles of change are not meant to be feared. They are meant to be approached with clarity, patience, and openness, because the close of one age is simply the opening of another. This is why ancient civilizations wrapped their messages in stories rather than instructions. Stories guide the mind. Stories shape perception. Stories prepare the heart. When they wrote of the Anunnaki returning, they were speaking of humanity awakening to fresh knowledge, renewed vision, deeper understanding. A return of awareness rather than a return of entities. A renewal of wisdom rather than a renewal of fear. A quiet shift in perspective unfolding gently as people begin to feel that the cosmos is not distant but near, very near, drifting above us in darkness, moving around us in patterns, lightly touching our awareness through the appearance of rare visitors from other stars. No myth is literal. No myth is empty. Every ancient story records how early humans sensed the movement of the universe. So tonight, as you rest in the soft stillness between being awake and being asleep, you can sense that same movement, the same cosmic rhythm the Sumerians felt, the same rhythm that shaped their stories, the same rhythm that shaped their warnings, the same rhythm that continues to shape the world. A rhythm that tells us the age is turning. Breathe, release, wake gently. Understanding is returning, as it always has, as it always will. In the end, the true warning of the Anunnaki is not about destruction. It is not about hidden realms. It is not about beings descending from the sky. It is about allowing change to arrive softly without fear. It is about recognizing that visitors from the cosmos are reminders, not dangers. It is about accepting that transformation is woven into what it means to be human. It is about remembering that the journey of humanity follows the same cycles that shape stars, planets, and ages. And as the night deepens around you, as your breathing slows, as your thoughts drift like dust through a quiet cosmic wind, you can rest, knowing that the universe moves gently. It does not hurry. It does not impose. It simply turns its pages and invites us to read. So let this story come to a gentle close. Let the ancient world dissolve into the dark. Let the myths settle like quiet embers. Let your body loosen. Let your mind grow calm. You are living through a turning age and you are ready for it. Not because of prophecy, not because of fear, but because humanity always adapts when the cycle calls. It is the oldest lesson we carry, the truest one, the softest one, the one carved into clay 5000 years ago and written in starlight tonight. The age is turning, and you are exactly where you need to be as it does. Before you drift fully into sleep, allow your thoughts to become light, almost translucent like dust settling on ancient stone. You have walked through forgotten ages tonight. You have stood beneath skies that no longer exist. You have listened to the echoes of civilizations that, like us, sought to understand their place in the universe. And now there is nothing left to understand, nothing left to examine, nothing left to hold. Just rest. The world beyond can wait for morning. The cycles can turn without your effort. The cosmos can move without your attention. In this moment you are safe. You are warm. You are still. Feel your breath moving gently in your chest. Feel your body becoming heavy and quiet. Feel your thoughts drifting like small boats across a calm night sea. If your eyes are still open, let them soften. Let them relax. Let them fade into darkness. You have traveled far enough for one night. Sleep now, deeply and easily, as the ancient world settles behind you and the universe hums softly above. Good night, and may your dreams carry you through gentle skies and quiet ages.